All right, we are here at the West Virginia Outdoor Economy Summit, and I've got my friend Bill Woodrum here. He just got off stage again. I've heard him speak now a handful of times, and it's always encouraging. What you said goes back to where, and I'm down in Greenbrier County, but it started 10 years ago with PCAP and an idea, an inspiration for this Mon-Town sort of project and going to these small communities. And really, it's led to some huge projects. I know in our area, we've got a new bike park coming, but I want you to talk about yourself and sort of what you've got coming and the amazingness of the collaboration. We've heard that word a lot today.
Yeah, it's my honor to be the senior program officer at the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation, focused on community and economic development. And that 10-year span that you talk about, I think is really critical, especially for some of our southern West Virginia counties who were ruined by flooding 10-ish years ago at this point. And it could have either been the thing that ended them, but what it wound up being for so many places like White Sulphur Springs was a new beginning. Obviously hard, the work's always hard, but they took that and they said, what can we build? And what can we build that's genuinely us? And I think, the investments that Benedum was making there, that was before I got there, but with PCAP and with groups like the Forest Towns, with the West Virginia Community Development Hub, goes up with coaching in so many small communities across the state, is really, we're seeing some of those instant success, overnight success kind of things now that have been 10, 15, 20 years in the making.
Exactly, and that's really key. I mean, what one of the neat things is with the way that the financial world is going, and we all have to be this together, collaboration. Nobody wants to be the only dollar into something. So it's great to have solid partners like yourself to help. But how can smaller organizations work together and get the ideas out there and get more people to the table?
Yeah, I think we've got to develop a voice. I think one of the things coming out of Forest Towns that I really enjoy seeing is that unified voice.
Yeah.
Is that, that they're very different. Elkins is not White Sulphur, is not Davis, is not Thomas, is not Marvinton.
Right.
And on is not Seneca Rocks, but they have this vision, this North Star that they're all headed towards. They're going to get there different ways.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Different businesses are going to come to different parts of that area. You're going to have residents come to different, pieces of that. You're going to have different tourist interests come. But as long as we're coming and we're curating larger opportunities for them to be in an area, we're making sure that they know that it's just not come to Seneca Rocks and climb the rocks or like the trail for the day. It's just not go to Davis and Thomas and drop in and listen to great music and see art. It's how do we package this all as this is, what we do. And you can mountain bike of the day and come have a drink at the Purple Fiddle and listen to great music of the evening.
Exactly.
Go down to Elkins to the Tiger. There's so many wonderful opportunities that all, intersect with about 20 to 30 miles.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Tiger. That's a great example of somebody really investing in the town and is really lifting the whole town up. But you talked about the Mon-Towns, and it's really that regional approach that is so important, I think, for West Virginia, because it is. You come to White Sulphur, you go to Richwood, you go to Marlinton. Any of these towns is make a total great week-long package, and really can make it great for these outside visitors to come in. And more than just the outside visitors, it makes it phenomenal for the residents who already live there.
Yeah, right. I look at Marlinton, and I think a town that has always had snowshoe in its kind of back door, but in ways kind of turned its back on snowshoe. And now it's begun to embrace it with the trails. You look at Monday Lick, all that work, what that's done, and the amenities that are now building up in Marlinton, new restaurants, expansion of like the old ice cream store there, some renovation in downtown, in the theater and the playhouse, and that great park. Those are all things that obviously help bring in tourists, the bike shop that's there. But that's also things that serve the locals and gives them that feeling, that creative place in their hometown that makes you prouder to be from that hometown. When you go, you can go on a Friday night and listen to music at the park with your kids. I mean, that's what makes up town.
It really does. And it's funny to talk about the families and the kids, but it takes me back to sort of the outdoor recreation. And we talked earlier with Sarah Elkins, who's now the new head for the West Virginia Interscholastic Cycling League, NICA. And all the kids and the whatnot that are getting on the bikes, and with each kid and coaches, and it's just making these communities thrive because the healthier kids and getting more kids on bikes and getting out in the woods. And it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it's so exciting, and it exposes kids not to just there's nothing to do here. Of course, they 20 years ago, I was working more in youth, and I saw a survey out of Los Angeles where kids said, there's just nothing to do here. You know what I mean? So you always have some of that, but exposing kids to opportunities for their evenings, for their weekends, and that unstructured time, I think we've got to get back to some of that as a society where kids can be turned loose in the woods, and go play, whether that's on a bike trail, whether that's hiking, whatever that is, in a safe space, in a controlled space, but not in a structured space.
Exactly.
Just observing. And then, what that leads to is at the age I am, I spent my teen years being told to go get a college degree and then get out of West Virginia.
Yeah.
And that narrative has changed so much till we're creating, the opportunities now for kids to see, oh,
I could stay here.
I can stay here. I can open a mountain bike store here. I love to
Grow that entrepreneurial
I can
spirit.
do repairs on mountain bikes and living at that, or I can be on my snowboard all day. Yes, I can do these things. I can have a shop. I can work in the industry. I can do these things in the place I love. My family has been in Winfield for 200 years, and that's home to me.
Yeah.
I hope we curate more of that with our kids. Like, I had to go away. I went out of state to work for a while and to go to graduate school, but I came back, and there was always home. Even when I lived in another state, people would say, "Where are you from?" And what came out of my mouth was Winfield, West Virginia. I live here now,
Yeah.
but home will always be.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here. What did you think of the summit? What do you think of some of the conversations going on?
I think it's fascinating. I love that this has been an outdoor economy conference. Tourism, obviously, a part of that, but more than. It is downtown development. It is planning. It is
Entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah. I try and avoid that because when you set me off on that one, I go for a long time. But entrepreneurs, I love it, said not by me, but by so many other people as critical. That's where we're adding jobs. Entrepreneurs add jobs in West Virginia, in our hometowns, and across the country.
Absolutely.
That's where new job creation comes from. And we're embracing that more and more as a state, supporting that out of things at the state. I hope we realize that there is no white knight with his industry that's going to drop a new industry in West Virginia that's going to save us. Even if they do come here and drop that industry here, we're probably giving them tax breaks that don't return all that money to the communities. And then if their headquarters is in New York City, that money's going back to New York City. I think one of the great stories of the Claude Worthington Benedum Foundation is Michael Benedum, one of West Virginia's first entrepreneurs, very entrepreneurial guy, as a wildcatter in the oil and gas industry, boom and bust his entire career, but was always looking around the corner. And had to take his business to Pittsburgh, but always employed West Virginians, always funded it to West Virginia. And when he founded the foundation named for his son who had passed away prior, his only child, 2/3 of our funding comes back to West Virginia by his decision.
Wow.
And it's the inverse of every West Virginia story. It is money now coming back to West Virginia from this man who had a vision unlike anybody else. He was the first guy. In 1922, he rented a plane and flew to Texas because he said the topography and the geography of Texas tell me that there's oil and gas in Texas. I don't know if y'all have heard, but there was a lot of oil. But he was one of the first ones in the Permian Basin to sink a well.
Wow. All right.
He saw around that corner. Right before the stock market crash in the late 20s, he went to South America and began sinking wells in South America. He did some of the first offshore wells outside of Brazil. An amazing man. And he used that not to extract money from West Virginia, but to return money to West Virginia.
All right.
And I think if more of us had that ethics, had that moral base, that it isn't what we can take out of West Virginia, it's what we can put back into our communities. And that is what entrepreneurs do. When I spend $1 at the local bike shop or the local comic book shop or the local butcher, that money's circulating
Absolutely.
in the community, not going to Arkansas or New York.
Everywhere else.
Alaska.
Keeping it here.
I love that. I love that. And looking just around the corner, I think that's key. And that's what West Virginia is doing with the West Virginia Outdoor Economy Summit.
I believe so.
So, Bill, thank you for taking a few minutes to sit down with us. So it's great.
Sit down with you. I'm glad you're here.
Keep up the good work.